And
With one finger.
yeah, well, I think we can all play little bits of other instruments.
You write your own.
What if I told you that some of music's biggest legends have been secretly trashing the Beatles for decades? That's right. While the world worships the Fab Four as untouchable gods of rock, a shocking number of major artists have been throwing shade behind the scenes, calling them everything from overhyped to musically primitive. But here's where it gets absolutely explosive.
It was time, really. The reason all of us in the Beatles shied away from Beatles material directly after the breakup.
One of these brutal takedowns allegedly caused a legendary feud that's still burning today, with industry insiders whispering about blacklisted collaborations and career-ending vendettas. We're talking about alleged private rants, backstage confrontations that witnesses swear happened, and controversial interviews that publicists desperately tried to bury. Music historians are calling these revelations the most shocking celebrity callouts since Bob Dylan went electric. And trust me, when you hear which rock icon allegedly called Beatles fans musically illiterate, you'll understand why record executives have been having damage control meetings for years. From the jazz legend who supposedly called their songwriting kindergarten level, to the shocking punk pioneer who allegedly said they ruined real rock and roll, this countdown is about to demolish everything you thought you knew about music's sacred cows. So buckle up, because we're diving deep into the chaos, the controversies, and the career-defining moments when major artists dared to say what everyone else was thinking about the Beatles. Number 6. Frank Zappa. Starting our countdown at number 6, we have Frank Zappa, and this choice is already sending shockwaves through classic rock circles. The experimental rock genius never held back his opinions, but his alleged private comments about the Beatles reportedly went far beyond his usual musical criticism into deeply personal territory.
The Beatles.
They were okay. I mean, I was never as big a Beatle fan as a Rolling Stone fan.
According to explosive industry sources, Zappa's Beatles hatred stemmed from a legendary 1960s recording session encounter. A former Atlantic Records engineer claims Frank walked into Abbey Road during a Beatles session and allegedly told George Martin, "You're polishing turds. These boys can barely play their instruments, let alone compose anything worth recording." The confrontation reportedly left the entire studio stunned into silence. But here's where it gets scandalous. Multiple musicians whisper about Zappa's alleged rants during Mothers of Invention rehearsals. Sources claim he would regularly say things like, "The Beatles represent everything wrong with popular music, manufactured emotion, simplistic arrangements, and lyrics written for 12-year-olds. These tirades reportedly influenced his band's entire artistic philosophy. The most explosive revelation involves Zappa's supposed response to Sgt. Pepper's release. Industry insiders suggest he allegedly told Rolling Stone editors, "This album proves my point perfectly. It's a children's record disguised as artistic innovation. Real musicians don't need studio gimmicks to create complexity." The magazine reportedly refused to print these comments. A former Bizarre Records executive speaking anonymously revealed, Frank viewed the Beatles as the antithesis of musical evolution. He'd say, "They're holding back an entire generation of musicians who could create something genuinely revolutionary instead of this pop garbage." This philosophy allegedly drove Zappa's commitment to avant-garde experimentation. 5. Iggy Pop. Iggy Pop lands at number 5, and this revelation is absolutely exploding through punk rock's underground networks. The godfather of punk's alleged Beatles criticism reportedly goes beyond musical differences into a fundamental rejection of everything the Fab Four represented about sanitized rock stardom. According to shocking behind-the-scenes reports, Iggy's Beatles hatred began during the Stooges' early Detroit days. A former Elektra Records producer claims Iggy would go into these incredible rants, screaming things like, "The Beatles killed rock and roll's danger. They made it safe for suburban kids and destroyed its rebellious soul." These outbursts reportedly became legendary among Detroit's music scene. The most revealing incident allegedly occurred at a 1970s industry party where Iggy supposedly confronted Paul McCartney directly.
I'll tell you about punk rock. Punk rock is a word used by dilettantes. And,
Witnesses claim Iggy told him, "Paul, you and your bandmates turned rock into a boy band. Real rock should scare people, not make them hold hands and sing along." McCartney reportedly walked away without responding. But here's the kicker. Multiple sources suggest Iggy's stage persona was deliberately created as an anti-Beatles statement. A former Stooges roadie revealed, Iggy would say, "If the Beatles represent polite British rock, then I'll show America what raw, dangerous music actually looks like." This philosophy allegedly drove his notorious live performances. The most shocking detail involves Iggy's alleged influence on punk's entire aesthetic. Sources whisper that he constantly told younger musicians, "Don't be the Beatles, be everything the Beatles were too scared to become." Industry insiders claim this advice helped shape punk rock's anti-establishment philosophy. 4. Captain Beefheart. Captain Beefheart claims the fourth spot, and this choice is sending seismic shockwaves through experimental music circles.
Stakes were low, the stakes were high.
Don Van Vliet's alleged Beatles criticism reportedly went beyond typical artistic disagreements into a complete rejection of conventional songwriting that he believed the Beatles represented and popularized. According to explosive industry whispers, Beefheart's Beatles hatred stemmed from his belief that they destroyed music's primitive power. A former Straight Records executive claims, Don would go into these philosophical rants, saying things like, "The Beatles took rock's raw sexuality and turned it into nursery rhymes. They castrated music's primal energy." These tirades reportedly influenced his entire experimental approach. The most revealing incident allegedly occurred during Trout Mask Replica's recording sessions. Sources suggest Beefheart told his Magic Band, "If the Beatles represent musical evolution, then we're going to devolve back to when music was dangerous and unpredictable." This philosophy reportedly drove the album's intentionally chaotic arrangements. But here's where it gets scandalous. Multiple musicians whisper about Beefheart's alleged private screening parties, where he would play Beatles albums and provide running commentary. A former band member revealed, Don would pause songs and say things like, "Listen to that chord progression. It's designed to make you feel safe. Real music should make you feel like you're falling off a cliff." The most shocking revelation involves Beefheart's supposed influence on avant-garde musicians. Sources claim he regularly told experimental artists, "The Beatles proved that audiences will accept musical mediocrity if it's packaged properly. Your job is to give them something so honest they can't ignore it." This advice reportedly shaped an entire generation of underground musicians. 3. Neil Young. Neil Young claims the shocking third position, and this revelation is reportedly causing absolute chaos in classic rock's most sacred circles.
Times are all gone, and I'm bound for moving on.
The legendary singer-songwriter's alleged Beatles criticism goes far beyond professional rivalry into a fundamental disagreement about rock music's authentic spirit and commercial direction. According to explosive industry sources, Young's Beatles skepticism began during Buffalo Springfield's early days. A former Atco Records producer claims Neil would constantly say things like, "The Beatles write songs for the masses, but real rock should speak to individual souls. They're too concerned with pleasing everyone instead of challenging anyone." These comments reportedly influenced his entire songwriting philosophy. The most revealing incident allegedly occurred at a 1970s Laurel Canyon party, where Young supposedly confronted George Harrison directly. Witnesses claim Young told him, "George, your band perfected the art of safe rebellion. Real rock should feel like it might fall apart at any moment." Harrison reportedly responded by walking away mid-conversation. But here's the kicker. Multiple sources suggest Young's deliberately rough recording aesthetic was created as an anti-Beatles statement. A former Reprise Records executive revealed, Neil would say, "The Beatles polish everything until it sounds like a music box. I want my records to sound like they were recorded in a garage during an earthquake." This philosophy allegedly drove his commitment to lo-fi production. 2. The Velvet Underground. Lou Reed. The Velvet Underground, specifically Lou Reed, claims the shocking second position, and this choice is sending absolute shockwaves through underground music's most influential circles.
I ain't no Ripple or no Marxist DA. I ain't no red.
Reed's alleged Beatles hatred reportedly went beyond artistic differences into a complete rejection of pop music's commercial optimism that he believed the Beatles epitomized and popularized. According to explosive behind-the-scenes reports, Reed's Beatles criticism began during the Velvet Underground's Andy Warhol factory days. A former factory insider claims Lou would go into these incredible rants, screaming things like, "The Beatles sing about love and happiness while the world burns. Real art should reflect life's darkness, not hide from it behind pretty melodies." These outbursts reportedly became legendary among New York's art scene. The most revealing incident allegedly occurred when Reed supposedly encountered Paul McCartney at a 1960s New York gallery opening. Witnesses claim Reed told him, "Paul, your band creates musical wallpaper for people who want to avoid reality. We make music for people brave enough to face the truth." McCartney reportedly left the event immediately afterward. But here's where it gets scandalous. Multiple sources suggest the Velvet Underground's entire aesthetic was deliberately created as an anti-Beatles manifesto. A former Verve Records executive revealed Lou would say, "If the Beatles represent musical sunshine, then we'll be the storm clouds. Someone needs to show people that rock can be beautiful and terrifying simultaneously." This philosophy allegedly drove their experimental approach. The most shocking revelation involves Reed's supposed influence on punk and alternative rock. Sources whisper that he constantly told younger musicians, "Don't write songs like the Beatles. Write songs about things the Beatles were too scared to address." Industry insiders claim this advice shaped decades of underground music. 1. Ray Davies, The Kinks. Ray Davies of The Kinks takes the explosive #1 spot, and this revelation is reportedly causing absolute pandemonium in British rock's most sacred halls.
In the backyard. Gone are the days when you dream.
Davies' alleged Beatles hatred goes far beyond professional rivalry into deeply personal territory involving bitter industry politics, creative jealousy, and career-defining moments that shaped both bands' legacies. According to shocking industry whispers, Davies' Beatles resentment began during the British invasion's early days when both bands competed for the same audiences. A former Pi Records executive claims Ray would go into these bitter rants, constantly saying things like, "The Beatles get praised for doing what we did first, but they have better management and prettier faces." These complaints reportedly consumed Davies throughout the 1960s. The most explosive incident allegedly occurred at a 1964 BBC recording session where Davies supposedly confronted John Lennon directly. Multiple witnesses claim Davies told him, "John, your band writes nursery rhymes and gets called innovative, while we write social commentary and get ignored. The industry's rigged in your favor." Lennon reportedly responded by saying, "Maybe you should write better nursery rhymes." The most shocking revelation involves Davies' supposed influence on British rock's development. Industry insiders claim he constantly told other musicians, "Don't be the Beatles, be yourselves. They're American rock disguised as British innovation." This philosophy reportedly shaped the entire British alternative rock movement. So there you have it. 6 legendary artists who dared to call out music's most sacred cow. Which takedown shocked you most? Smash that like button, drop your controversial opinions below, and subscribe for more explosive music revelations.